Good morning, Rob Brown in Memphis, in the middle of Rebel Nation. Brendan Martin in Ocala, Florida. We have got a stacked show today, batting in the leadoff position.
Is there a game tonight?
Oh, yeah, there's a game tonight. Ole Miss and Miami out in Arizona.
Yeah.
And I think most of Rebel Nation is there. My friends that are there say it looks like a home game for Ole Miss. The airport full of hotty-totty shuttles and jets, and
There's plenty of hotty-totty for him down there, I'll tell you that.
Absolutely. And look, do us a favor. Take a picture with your phone. Be cool of the QR code. We're broadcasting live, 8 channels simultaneously. Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Hey, you know me. You know Brendan.
Wherever you're watching, subscribe.
Yeah, wherever you're watching. Yeah.
If you're watching this right now, subscribe, like, share, comment, join the show, be a part of the podcast, be a starter. What we're doing, it's free.
Yeah. That way you will always automatically get it. And I get these things for the Buddy Martin Show, Scarborough Knows, Lowdown with Lauren Meadows. You always know, click that button and you can watch it. We've got Mr. College Football, Tony Barnhart, joining us. That's always just special. He's incredible. And John Hartwell, equally just
he's all right.
This guy is these two guys together, I think, know everybody. And if they don't know them, they don't exist. The Hour of Power begins. Gary Harris also joins us. Matt Dean out on assignment today, feeling a little bit rough.
And there's our man.
Get better, Matt.
One Zone Angel. Good morning. Always good to hear you in the morning.
I love that guy. This is
every show.
Show. He watches everything. I love you, Stone Angel. Let's get started. Get going. Tony, John, I think everybody in the free world tonight is going to be tuned in to Miami and Ole Miss out in the desert. Tony, we talked in the pre-show about how special college football is, how it pulls everybody together, but also y'all two do. Buddy does. Brent, all these guys, because you've seen so much. And Tony, this is the only hope the SEC has to win a national championship. We had 5 teams that started.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a danger that Ole Miss, that it's like, okay, we got this far, don't forget you got 2 more games to win the whole thing?
Yeah, I mean, but I don't get the sense that they're gonna relax in that kind of way. You know, it's one, to use the old cliche, it's one game at a time against a really, really good team. Who loves to play physical football. And so I love this game. As they say in boxing, styles make fights. The question is, who's going to dictate tempo in the game? Is Ole Miss going to dictate the tempo with Trinidad Shambliss, or is Miami going to dictate tempo with the offensive and defensive lines? That's what we're going to find out, and it's going to be fun watching.
Tony, when you watched Miami, Ohio State, 24-14, Reuben Bain, their front 7. Reuben's the main guy, a South Florida kid. This looks like a lot of the Miami teams. Ironically, it's not an accident that Mario Cristobal played on from 86 to 90 when he came out of Christopher Columbus High School. Tommy Tuberville remembers going after him and another big lineman, Dwayne Johnson, out of Bethlehem, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Would you agree that this Miami team is pretty darn strong, even though they lost to SMU and Louisville?
Yes, and I would say that I've often told people that the one of the greatest football teams that never won a national championship was the Miami team of 2002 when Ohio State beat them for the national championship.
Yep.
And the thing about Miami, I often said I didn't know if Miami would ever come back, to where they want to be.
Yeah.
I didn't know if that was possible or not. And if they could win the national championship, you'd have to say they're back. And what I think is neat about Miami is all the former players who come back and who are emotionally invested in that program. From Michael Irvin, I mean, on and on and on. And I think that's a neat part of this story.
Oh, yeah. It is. Tony, per capita, Miami players and John give back more than about any other group of former players of any school in the country. I was told that by a guy that's a professional fundraiser. John, jump in here with Mr. College Football, Tony Barnhart.
Yeah, exciting day, and as always, great to be on with you guys. Tony, good to hear from you as well. Man, what an exciting day. Yeah, I couldn't help but wear my Rebels gear today. It's been 14 years since I worked there, but I spent 10 years there. And I think I speak for anybody who ever attended school, cheered for the Rebels, worked in athletics, any of those things. Today's a huge day. Arguably the biggest day ever in Ole Miss athletics. No slight to Mike Bianco and the baseball Rebels having won a College World Series a couple of years ago. But on this stage and what they have the opportunity to do, and so many storylines, whether you talk about Pete Golding, and I'll say this, and Tony, I'd love to hear your take on this. He has put on a clinic in the interviews that he's done over the course of the past 10 days or so. There's a few curse words in there, but the swearing makes him real. I mean, you've got that storyline. I'm one of those who am trying to ignore the Lane Kiffin side of it. I think that's really a non-factor now. I think it's more motivation for Ole Miss than anything else. But so many storylines, and I agree with Tony. It's going to be a great football game tonight. I think it's going to be another slugfest that comes down to the final 2 or 3 minutes of the game to see who wins.
Well, I wrote a column for the Football Writers Association of America. I think they're going to put it up today, or maybe have done it yesterday. And the point that I made there is what a great. I'm a guy, and Rob and I have talked about this. This is about stories. Okay, this is about tell me a good story. And this is an incredible story. And one of the points I tried to make is what people need to remember. This is not Lane Kiffin's team. It's their team. The players, it's their team. And they talked about the fact that you got Charlie Weiss, I think, is great. But all this other fretting and moaning and gnashing about these other guys, no. Players are going to take care of this. So it is about the players, and that's what makes it such a fascinating story.
Tony, when you look at Trinidad Chambliss, his story alone, D2, one, that one right there, and you pick with either side. The number of 34% of this team is kids they recruited out of high school. When they played Georgia last week, Georgia was 91% kids out of high school. So they do it differently. All four of these coaches coach for Nick Saban. How many? I mean, this is the most stories that you could go with I've seen in a long time out of a Final Four.
No, there's no question about it. And the Ole Miss story, it harkens back to the 1989 NCAA basketball tournament when Steve Fisher took over the Michigan team before the tournament started because Bo Schembechler, the AD, said a Michigan man is going to coach Michigan. And then he goes on. And, oh, by the way, he's got a great basketball team. You go back and look at that team. Wow, holy cow. And they win it all. And so this is that kind of feeling. And the other thing is, this is the SEC's last chance. And but I'm sure that the Big Ten won't try to rub it in if the SEC doesn't win. So
no chance of that at all. Tony, one other thing before I go back to John, the TV numbers. It's kind of strange, but I'm curious how people say, well, if Ole Miss is playing, the TV execs won't like it. I think the opposite. I think it's so compelling. I call them the orphan brigade because, their coaches, he left them and he's trying to pull other coaches away because he didn't think they'd go this far.
Yeah. Well, and the thing about it is that the reality is when you have a story like this, it doesn't matter what's happened in the past. People will tune into this game who really don't follow college football because of the unusual storyline and what Ole Miss has a chance to accomplish. That brings people in who are really not football fans per se. So I think the television numbers will be good. So
I do too, John.
Yeah, I mean, again, so many storylines in it, so many talented players. When you look at the news of the last 48 hours and you see that Trinidad Chambliss, with the asterisk there, pending a positive outcome of what he's asked the NCAA for to get another year of eligibility, Lacey returning. There's so much positive momentum around this Ole Miss program right now. But like Tony said, when you've got Michael Irvin and Ray Lewis and a whole host of other stars on cheering on the Hurricanes on the other side, it really is compelling. So, if even though we're missing some of the blue bloods, if you will, of CFPs of recent years, I think the interest here, and not give credit to the other game too, because I think Oregon, Indiana is going to be a great game too. And I think whatever two teams survive at the end of tomorrow night, I think Miami next week is going to be electric as well.
Yeah. Tony, the talk now, what do we have? What's the deadline on whether we go to 14 or 16 teams in the playoff?
January 23rd.
Okay.
They've had several meetings already, but the deadline, they put together the deadline. If they're going to make a change, the decision has to be made by January 23rd. If they don't make a decision, that means that next year we will continue to have a 12-team playoff.
In your opinion, 13, 14, and 15, they'll scream the loudest. 17, 18, and 19 with the 16 playoff. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I'd agree with that, and I think 16 is the way to go. The storyline about all these folks that are getting buys are still losing. The calendar doesn't change if you go to 16. All you do is play a complete first round and don't have any buys. So I absolutely think that's the way to go. Think about this: 16 teams in the playoff, eight home games in the first round. How good would the response to having home games in this tournament has been really good. Suppose you had 8 home games in the first round.
Wow. I mean, when they played the game in Oxford, John, arguably the biggest sporting event in the history of the state of Mississippi within the borders, correct?
Yeah, I would agree. The other thing that's being talked about right now too is, and this goes back to Tony's point about home games and the popularity of those, is, hey, do we possibly look at some second round games as well? Because I know, talking to some of the Ole Miss people, and you probably have too, Rob. I mean, I was texting this morning with a friend of mine who is a significant donor and booster, and he's like, hey, I'm traveling all over the country, from a work standpoint and from a financial standpoint, traveling all over and hey, we win tonight and turn around and going for 3 or 4 days to Miami next week. And I've got to take my kids and my grandkids and everybody else. He said, this is a pretty expensive proposition. Mm-hmm. So I think you may see some more conversation. Obviously, you've got to be sensitive to the traditional setting of bowls, what those do, the sponsors there. But I do think that's up for discussion too. Is it first round games at, neutral sites, and then you go to second round games at home sites, or some combination thereof? But I know that's on the table for discussion as well.
Tony, I went to the Liberty Bowl with my friend Boyd Wade. That was his 52nd Liberty Bowl, my 39th Friday. We sat in the rain. We had 2 of our friends up from Alabama. They disappeared in the first quarter. But I was there, and I love all that history, tradition, and heroes. But what about what James Luden here is saying? I understand the tradition, but I truly believe that home games should go all the way until the national championship. If you get higher seeds, these fans deserve home field advantage. But again, it's the cost. Trying to get a plane fare the week of versus 6 months in advance or 3 months in advance, it ain't cheap.
No, it's not cheap, and that will be quite a debate, because obviously that the role that particularly these 6 bowls that are involved in the playoff, the role they have played, and what do you do with the Rose Bowl? You're not going to say, well, Rose Bowl won't you've got to take care of them, because they found that the Rose Bowl property is really helpful. I mean, and to have that on New Year's Day, and the contracts are in place between the Rose Bowl and the CFP that they will play on New Year's Day at 4:00 Eastern time. So that's it sounds great on paper, but I don't see them telling the bowls after all this time, nah, we don't need you guys anymore.
Yeah. John?
Yeah. Hey, I was looking at your comments there, Rob. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the non-call on the face mask the other night in that Ole Miss game. That again, in talking to a lot of Ole Miss folks, they're like, "Oh gosh, here we go again." There was a lot of hesitation, especially as Georgia was driving late in the game for a potential go-ahead touchdown. The two officials standing there in close proximity to the face mask, and no call was made. Those folks familiar with Oxford and the Rebels, the old saying, "We are Ole Miss." I think there were some of those ghosts that were screaming at that point. But again, it's a testament to this team and their resiliency that they put that beside them and found a way to win the game.
Yeah. Tony, you think about there's usually 4 or 5 plays that determine the outcome of a game. They're all close, but Indiana, what they did to Alabama, talk about that and the roster. Again, go back again. We say it every day. 14 5-stars on Alabama's roster, 0 Indiana. 55 4-stars on Alabama's roster, 7 4-stars on Indiana's. 17 3-stars on Alabama. 60-something and unrateds and never heard ofs on Indiana's roster. Have you had a chance to sit down and talk to Kurt Signetti? What drives this guy?
Well, what drives this guy, he has said so many times publicly that his basis is the time he spent with Nick Saban. It was first of all, it's to learn under Nick Saban. I've known Kirby Smart since he was a freshman at Georgia. You learn so much, and that's what has happened. It's a special thing. And the coaching is what I find interesting in the sense that it's a situation where people talk about you have this many 5-stars, you don't have. But what you got to remember about that is you're talking about 2 different kinds of pools of athletes. Alabama, let's take Georgia. Georgia obviously builds through high school recruiting and spot pick here and there from the portal. Whereas Lane Kiffin, Kirk Signetti has built a team of players that already had experience. He didn't recruit these guys out of high school. That's why you don't have any 4-stars. But when they get to his campus, he makes them into that level of a player. Yeah. So you really can't compare those two because it's 2 completely different approaches on how to recruit athletes.
It really is. And I don't think most people understand anything about his staff. They don't know much about him, but he left Alabama to go coach, John, at IUPU because he thought it was better than where he was. But he may not want to admit it, but Nick Saban, all 4 of these guys worked for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Kirk Signetti, he talked about the transition of going from being a Power 4 or at that time a Power 5 assistant coach to going to a lower level to take a head coaching job. He bet on himself, and obviously it has paid off. But I think, again, as we talk about storylines throughout all of these teams, the blue-collar, roll-up-your-sleeves, go-to-work approach of Kirk Signetti and his evaluation of talent, mostly through the transfer portal, has been incredible. And it may not be the most athletic, biggest, strongest, fastest kids. You can take Mendoza out of that because he's a special talent for sure. Yeah. But it's about building a team. And I think that's part of the allure of this Indiana team. And, hats off to them. Again, another place that has been well known for athletics, but it's been about Bobby Knight and Hoosier basketball. And it's another outstanding storyline as we approach CFP championship time.
Tony, you get where we are right now. These 4 teams, Ole Miss. The story is it's one of the best. Indiana. Then you look at Oregon, and you think about Oregon, Indiana, Miami, and Ole Miss. Dan Lanning. I know you know him from his time at Georgia. He was a GA at Alabama. Hell, Ellis Johnson was talking on the show Monday. He goes, Brendan nicknamed him Tom Cruise. He goes, Joe Judge was my GA. I mean, it's a small world where all these guys are coming from. But and talking to a friend who really knows that Ole Miss staff yesterday, look at the staff that they have at Ole Miss.
Mm-hmm.
And then look at Dan Lanning's staff. What is it about Dan Lanning? He's a fiery, get after your, from Olathe, Kansas, right next to the former NCAA headquarters in Shawnee Mission.
All right. Well, actually, I got a chance to meet Dan when he was at Georgia and was very, very impressed with him. Yeah. And when the Oregon job came open, he got that. I said, you know what, he can really do something with that situation because you have the financial resources.
Yeah.
Now you got to go recruiting. But give Mario Cristobal some credit too. Okay, he did some very good recruiting to get that program launched. And so Dan Lanning's been on a lot of short lists. Okay, but he looks around and goes, what did Al McGuire say? Don't mess with happy.
Yeah.
He's got a really good situation, and he's one game away from a national championship.
Yeah, everybody's got to wear shoes, guys. I mean, Nike, and a lot of them are Nike. So that's what it. John, jump back in. A few more minutes with Tony Barnhart, Mr. College Football. And those of you watching, please share us and like us, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and we put reels out. One thing about having Tony Barnhart on here too, there's a lot of great content, a lot of great reels. So you'll learn a lot every time.
Yeah, the other story playing in here now is the Damon Williams Jr. Saga at Washington and the contract, and is that going to be enforceable? And where's he trying to go? I know LSU has been mentioned in that, but when we go back to NIL, which we can't ignore that in any of these conversations, how that plays out is going to be really interesting to set. I won't say a standard because it's constantly evolving, but how that plays out and if he's let out of that and who has to pay who, that's an interesting dynamic. But I'll go to the flip side of that for just a second. The FCS National Championship game the other night was outstanding. Hats off to Montana State. But, that continues the question out there, hey, is it time to consider a group of 5 championship along the same types of lines? There are a lot of arguments for and against that, but I'd be interested to hear Tony's take on those items.
Yeah.
Well, I've long felt like the group of 5 should have their own championship, their own national championship. And I think it would be good. I think there'd be a lot of interest, but I also know what this group of 5 schools are thinking. I can be the next James Madison. I can be the next Tulane, and get it. So that's going to be a hard nut to crack. But I think it may just ultimately evolve as we get closer to one big super conference, if that's what we end up doing. But I think it's a good idea. But I don't think the group of 5 they want their shot. And it's a dream for them to get there. So,
well, and I would think if a school like Tulane or Memphis gets in there, or any power or group of 5 school, the fundraising, it's a little easier to go ask for the money. And you look at a program like Cincinnati over the years, Eastern Michigan or Central Michigan sent all these coaches, Mark D'Antonio, Brian Kelly, Butch Jones, all went to Cincinnati. And then they went on to bigger things. And now Cincinnati's got a pretty solid program. I think that's what I see. I mean, is that true or am I off?
Part of it, as most things in life do, comes down to 2 things: dollars and cents. And having sat in many of those discussions over 13 years as a group of 5 AD, that is the concern. Yeah, it would be great to have a playoff. But at the end of the day, are the financial components of a separate group of 5 playoff going to be able to produce enough money that the group of 5 schools, whether they're participating in it or just a beneficiary of some of the financial windfall of it, is it going to be equal to what they're currently getting right now out of the CFP distribution?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it is. But now you've got private equity playing in there. Is this an avenue that potentially private equity, not directly with the institutions, but indirectly, can help funnel some more dollars in there?
Yeah, Tony, I'm curious what you think about that proposed $500 million private equity deal with Utah. I mean, what could possibly go wrong?
No, what could possibly go wrong? No,
Wow.
I'm not real big on the private equity concept. I understand where they're coming from. I just think there are too many complicating factors, and so I am not real big on that.
Yeah, and so, all right, Tony, before you go, what are you going to be writing about? Talk about your column today, upcoming columns, 50th year writing. I think you're just getting started. I mean, I'm saying, and we want you to be part of our network, man, with your podcast, because you are, every time you come on, and John and Brendan, everybody knows this, you've got so many great stories that you're writing about. And at Media Days, guys, Tony's always, he's so polite, quietly, he's over there talking to the people that are moving the needle in college athletics. And, we all know that. So I want you to make it to 100, which means you're 70% of the way to your goal. We got to have Mr. College football. We can't have Florida with no beach.
Oh, my goodness.
I'm just saying.
Well, I appreciate that. I had a wonderful dinner last night with the folks in the Peach Bowl. I'm on the board of directors for the Bobby Dodd Foundation. Wow. And we had a wonderful dinner last night. And I was just looking around at Maria was with me. I said, how cool is this? Capital City Club downtown Atlanta. And Bill Curry was there, former Dodd player, and told us some great stories. So it's been a wonderful, and I've had a wonderful stretch researching this book. My problem now, guys, is that I've done most of the research for the book. Now I got to sit down and write the sucker. Okay?
Yeah,
that's always a challenge.
Yeah,
but it has been a lot of fun, and we'll have our meeting at Football Writers will have our meeting down in Miami when we get there next week. That's sort of our end of the year convention to trade notes, and I'm looking forward to seeing everybody.
Well, and I want you to meet Clark Humble in Sandy Springs. Next time I'm down there, we're going to all go out. I'll take everybody to dinner.
I owe you a phone call on that. That's right.
Yeah. He'd love to talk to you. And when you talk to Clark, he said, he goes, I grew up poor in Iowa. I dreamed about all this stuff. Life's been great to him because he worked his butt off. But he said, I got to go to all these. When you talk and you hear his stories, Tony, it goes right in tandem with what you do. That's why Mr. College Football for president, I'm going to nominate you. But anyway, let them know how they can follow you, and we'll do it again next week.
Well, we do something because I've been researching this book. I haven't written nearly as much stuff. There's just too much going on. But I did post a column this week about Ole Miss and what it's like, and the history, and most of the people who listen to us, they have no idea who John Vaught was. Okay. And that John Vaught in 1962, the last time Ole Miss won a national championship.
Yeah.
And that's why it's really, really cool to be a part of something like this.
Oh, it really is. Well, Tony, look, Happy New Year again. Look forward to having you on again soon. And John, you'll probably run into Tony, get some sound bites from him for the show when you're in Miami. But as always, thanks more than you know for sharing your time with us, Tony.
All right, guys, have a good one.
Hey,
You
Tony, see you next week. Hey, hopefully we can get together with Langston Rogers next week in Miami and celebrate the Rebels.
A great American, Langston Rogers. Nobody better. Nobody better.
Well, he and Claude Felton and David Housel, buddy, you can't get better than them, man.
They're the best.
All right. Thank you
care,
so
Tony.
much.
All right, guys, take care.
John, this is what's so great about college football. And I mean, Brendan, you talk about, the luckiest people, not lucky, he worked, but I mean, growing up with Buddy, your dad, the things you get to see, Terry Bradshaw comes to see you in high school, the people that you meet. I remember talking to Ralph Jordan Jr. is a friend of mine, Shook Jordan's son. He said one time he was in college, his mother called him and said, you need to get home right now. Your father's here and he wants you to meet somebody. And he goes, well, Mom, I'm going over to the Sigma Nu house. Blah, blah. She goes, get home now. Ralph Jr. gets over there on Woodfield Drive, walks in the house. Your mother, Miss Evelyn, goes, go on in the den there, son. he goes in the den, and sitting on the couch is his dad, probably smoking a cigarette, and John Wayne, the actor, and the other, oh my God, that was in the actor, that was the other star actor in the movie. They were filming the Green Berets over at Fort Benning, and they wanted to come over and meet Coach Jordan. I mean, that kind of stuff, when your dad's a sports writer or a coach that you get to meet, that's what's so special about college football. You mentioned Langston Rogers. God, that guy can tell us. If Mark Twain or William Faulkner at Roanoke in Oxford were sitting on the front porch telling a story, it'd be like talking to Langston Rogers. What a special person he is. First class all the way. You know him. Tell people about him.
Yeah, the longtime media relations director. Back then they called it the SID. Has evolved from.
It was David Jansen. David Jansen was in there with John Wayne, who was the act. Remember, he was the writer in the Green Berets. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. But yeah, Langston, I know today is special for him. He's kind of the guy who put together the Manning room at Ole Miss. A tribute to Archie and Eli and their family. But again, he's one of those guys I thought of this morning who has has put in a lot of blood, sweat, and tears equity into Ole Miss athletics to see a day like today evolve.
Yeah, and it really is. And so you think about Gary Harris is going to be on with us momentarily from Tuscaloosa. Said he's trying to get on. But John, I love what's going on right now. It becomes so much more tangible and it's real when your team or a team, you're right next to their campus within an hour. You've got a lot of, I have so many Ole Miss friends. Oh my God. Guys in my hunting club like Michael Campbell that have grown up in Natchez, Mississippi, been going to the games. I mean, they've been there for the good, the bad, and the ugly, and there's been plenty of ugly. And they are just, I mean, they're not, hey, they got a right to be, excited and all like that. Think about how many people are driving out west. I-40 out to Arizona. You've been to these national championship games. For people that are on the fence, let's say you got a guy in Memphis right now going, man, I've got access to a plane. Should I go? What would you tell him?
I'd say there's no question in that. You've got to do it. If your team's, again, you think about the number of really talented, really good college football teams. And for all four of these teams that are left, yeah, they've had great preparation from their coaching staff. They got a lot of talent. But you know what? To get this far, whether it's football, men's or women's basketball, whatever the sport, to get this far, the ball's got to bounce your way a couple of times too. And you can't just say, hey, this is going to happen. And I do think that's one of the great equalizers in college athletics today. NIL, for all the challenges you're having with it, it is an equalizer. And I think it's even more important. Hey, if your team is this close to a championship and you're debating whether, hey, can I go? Can I make? You better take the opportunity because it may not come again.
Yeah. Let me say something. I love Indian Pass Pirate. He's talking about Cortez Kennedy. I met him one time at a Touchdown Club of Memphis event. He came over to a party someone had at their house, and I'm in there. Bobby Joe Franklin, former football coach at Northwest Mississippi Community College in Senatobia, the five-star city, home of Alan Callicott, mayor forever. Cortez Kennedy walks in there and shakes my hand. It was like shaking hands with a country ham. The man, his hands were ginormous. And I'll tell you where he's from because I go over there a lot, Wilson, Arkansas. And they have a street, Cortez Kennedy Lane. Cortez, NFL, wasn't he man of the year a couple of times? Unbelievable story. And played at Miami. Indian Pass Pirate, hunted with Tez back in the day. Wow. That would be cool. Gary Harris, sports director, Channel 23 in Tuscaloosa. Gary, I was thinking about you talking to my wife and our daughter that was in Tuscaloosa when that tornado hit April 27th of 2011. She was a senior there. Were you in the TV studio? Before you go to football, were you in the TV studio when that storm was coming? Were you at the station? You're muted. Okay. Tell Tony, you're muted. We can't hear you. Okay. Tony.
Gary is Gary.
I'm good
Gary,
now.
Gary.
I'm running behind this morning, and
Sorry about that.
Sorry. So
Yeah.
no, I was in the TV station. In fact, I had a kid that went with me, and we went out to try to shoot some video of it, and got some really good video. In fact, probably shouldn't have done it. Went up to the bank building downtown and went all the way up to the top and got up on the roof for a while. We coming, and we said we better get down, but get on back downstairs. But it was an unbelievable day, and one that I don't know why you brought that up, but I was working that day.
Yeah, we were just talking about it, and I said that I thought you were there. Tony, Alabama football right now didn't go well. We know that in the Rose Bowl. 4 losses, 2 years in a row. And, Kevin Skarbinski on this channel did a great podcast looking at the record after 2 years. Nick Saban, Kalen DeBoer. What Nick Saban inherited, nowhere close to what DeBoer inherited, but what's the temperature of the Alabama fan base after the 38-3 loss to Indiana?
Well, I think there are some now that are, closing ranks and will tell you that what Kalen DeBoer inherited was not as – I've saw some guy go out on a long post and explain how Nick Saban inherited a better team than Kalen DeBoer did, believe it or not. So you've got you got some of the people in the fan base that are, they're going to be loyal until the very end and don't see anything other than progress was made this year, which it was based off the first year. Again, you went 10-2 in the regular season. You made it to Atlanta for the SEC championship game. You got into the playoff. You won a road playoff game in the first round and then lost in the quarterfinals of the Rose Bowl. So there are going to be some that are going to, regardless of what you say, they're going to push back on you. And then there are going to be others who, the sky's falling. It's terrible and they can't run and can't block up front. And players going to the portal. And then there's going to be probably the mid-level fans that are trying to look at it objectively and saying, that it was a decent year, but certainly next year needs to be better. So it's a mixed bag right now, which is often the way that it is. When you're going into the third year with a football coach, but good and bad and everywhere in between.
All right, John Hartwell jumping here. Gary Harris, Tuscaloosa, Tide 100.9 and Channel 23, and Tider Insider with our good friend Rodney Orr.
Hey, Gary, I know we're football primary today with the CFP semifinals going on, but I didn't get to watch any of the Alabama-Vandy game last night, but it must have been a heck of a basketball game. Sounds like it turned into a free throw shooting contest as well.
Yeah, it kind of feels like the officials hijacked it a little bit. And I know they've got a tough job. I get it. I understand that many big, strong athletes playing as fast as they play. The officials want to make sure they keep the game under control. But again, I just wish the director of officials in the league would remind these guys, nobody goes to the games to see them. They're not, I've always said, if you're, I don't care for celebrity officials. If fans know your name, and I would say Don Daly is one of those guys. If all the fans know who you are, you may think that's a good thing. I don't think it's a good thing. And I thought last night it got ridiculous, and I thought it took away from the game and just too many fouls. I know you can't have a free for all out there, but I'm just, when I see a game and it's just, the game is impacted, the pace, the flow by officiating, and it bothers me. And that was a hard game to watch at times last night. I'll say this, if I'm, I cover Alabama, but I'm not at all the press conferences now, especially now that I'm filling it on the news. And I wish one of the beat reporters would ask Nate Oates, how concerned is he that he can't ever have a full roster of players? I mean, he hasn't had his full roster available to him a single game this season. Last night, Sherelle was out, and then Philon went down with leg cramps and couldn't return to the game. I think they got maybe 18 minutes out of him, and you're playing the number 11 team in the country on the road, and you lose 96-90. I mean, you'd like to think if you'd had Aiden Sherelle, and then if you had Philon, who had 18 points when he went out, if you'd had those guys available for their entire, for the game, that you'd have won the game. But that's part of it. But last night, Vanderbilt's a good team. Obviously, they were undefeated, And, we've talked about this before. Nate Oates is just blunt. I mean, he just says what's on his mind. And I think a lot of times he doesn't even mean anything by it. He made the comment about Vanderbilt had not played a tough schedule, which is true. Doesn't mean they're not a good team. And he went on to praise them, but like Nick Saban says, players in this day and age, nothing gets them excited more than like what they perceive as disrespect. So, of course, the Vanderbilt people made a big deal about that. He said that, but that's a fact. They had not played a tough schedule. Doesn't mean they weren't a good team. That was a good win for them last night. They're undefeated. They're going to be in the top 10. Tough loss for Alabama, but it's just peculiar to me, guys, that Alabama, for whatever reasons, it's just been a year where every game they've had people in street clothes on the bench or people not available to play. And sometimes it's been as many as 5 or 6 guys. So, they're a good team. You would just like to see them, though, with everybody available and healthy, what the potential of them, their team could be. But, at this point in the year, I don't know if we're ever going to see that. Doesn't feel like it.
Well, one quick comment and a question. Only place where we have celebrity referees. Growing up as a kid, we're all the same age. Wrestling referee Jerry Calhoun in here in the ring with manager Jimmy Hart, a fine man indeed, with Jerry the King Lawler, Bill Dundee, Plowboy Frazier. Who could ever forget a 6'7", 483-pounder in short pant overalls and combat boots? What a stud! All right, question for you, Gary. Looking Alabama in the last 5 or 6 years. How many defensive linemen have they had taken in the NFL draft, first or second round?
It hasn't been many. There was that run under Saban, of course, where it was every year. It seemed like there was 1 or 2 that won in the first round. So, right off the top of my head, Rob, I can tell you it hasn't been many. So, that's probably the biggest area, if any. That's probably the biggest area where, if you look at Alabama, where some people would argue they've regressed, has been on the lines of scrimmage, particularly on the defensive line of scrimmage, as far as top tier players.
All right, one more, and then back to John. Ty Simpson, is he going in the NFL draft? What's he going to do?
Yeah, he's going to the NFL draft.
Okay, it's official. Okay.
He's already announced it, and his dad, Jason Simpson, the coach there at UT Martin, said that every GM that they talked to, every single one, gave him a first-round grade. And so when I saw that he was coming out, I figured that was the case, because I don't think they would go into the draft unless they felt really confident that he would go in the first round. So, he's not transferring to any other school, and he's not coming back to Alabama. He is going to enter the draft.
All right, John.
So, in follow-up to that, Gary, is Alabama shopping? I know they've got a couple of talented quarterbacks at QB2, QB3 this past year, but are they in the market in the portal at all for a quarterback?
You never rule it out, because of the fact that, sometimes coaches want to make sure they got an experienced quarterback on the roster. But I don't, they're bringing in 2 freshmen as well, and they've got the 2 returnees. They're high on both of those guys, really high on Mack and Russell. So it's not my expectation that they would sign a quarterback unless they signed a guy, that was not going to cost them a ton of money as far as NIL is concerned, and understood that he was coming in maybe just to be an emergency quarterback or a mentor or something like that. But I don't think they're going to try to sign a top tier quarterback out of the portal. They got other priorities. I promise you that. Did I lose you?
Rob, you're muted.
Rob, you're on mute.
Yeah, Sorry about that. I was on mute. Gary, it's not just Alabama. It's across the SEC and all of college football. Offensive line play is pretty much awful. Few teams can just line up and run the ball down your throat when they have to or really want to. Alabama, one time this year, they had Jam Miller go over 100 yards in a game. There was the game that they won against Oklahoma. They averaged 4 feet per rush, but they still won it, 28 yards on 25 carries. Is that a sign of the times, or does Alabama need to look for a new offensive line coach, in your opinion?
Well, if it's a sign of the times, then Alabama fans aren't going to be happy, because as you just shouted those numbers out, and I think in the Rose Bowl it was 17 carries for 23 yards. I don't know. Maybe I'm not a coach. My feeling is, regardless of what your scheme is, you got to be able to run the ball some. I mean, you got to keep – the defense has to feel like, if they get spread out too much or commit too much to, safeties deep down the field, that they can get gashed in the run game. And if they don't have a fear of that, it's going to be a lot easier to play defense. I think Alabama's got to be better in the running game going forward. And now, the reasons for that, I can't really tell you, Rob. If it's the offensive line coach, Kapilovic is still here, or if it's the scheme or the running backs, it's a combination of all of the above to me. But if I'm an Alabama offensive coach, I'm going to work on a way to get a running game that's more effective. Now, I also believe that they want to still, I don't think their scheme is fully introduced offensively in regards to feeling like they've got a quarterback in either Milroe or Simpson who fits their template, which was a Michael Penix, a guy who's going to catch the ball, process it, get it out of his hand in 1 point, whatever seconds they want it out, and get it to the ball to the receivers and let them get yards after the catch. I mean, I think they want to do a lot of stuff like that and spread you out and then try to find those seams for the run game. So I still think their offense is evolving, but regardless of what they're doing, I can't see this running game at this level leading them to a championship. I think they've got to be able to run it better.
Yeah, John.
Yeah, it's interesting talking about running games like that. I was talking to somebody in the football world who I trust a lot the other day, and was talking about the offensive line play for Army and for Navy. And when you look at those offensive lines, most of the people they're playing against are not, who their competition is bigger, stronger, faster, but that the offensive blocking schemes for those schools. And he talked about, why more people have not spent time either directly with those coordinators or offensive line coaches. But you watch Alabama the other day, and you think all the way back when I was a kid, the Johnny Musso days, way back when. Alabama has always, the staple has been their ability to run the football, and that's obviously was not there for most of the time this year.
See, a question about Kevin. Is he important for Alabama? He's in the form out of Tuscaloosa County High, who committed to Miami, flipped to Alabama, and then early season got hurt. I think he's plans.
What about Crowell, the running back you signed out of high school? Kevin Skarbinski thinks he is a difference maker. He's watched him play a lot in high school. Your thoughts on him?
Yeah, E.J. Crowell is a guy that he's one of the best high school running backs the state has ever seen out of that powerhouse Jackson Aggies program down in Southwest Alabama. Yeah, based on what you see from him in high school, you would assume that he's going to come in here and make an impact. At the same time, I thought A.K. Deere out of Quitman, Mississippi last year would make an impact. And, when he got here, word was, he didn't stand the nuances of pattern this and that, and that there's only running back in this system other than just ball in your hands and running with it. So I don't want to be, presumptuous and assume anything. But yeah, I think Crowell is a next level talent. I think he was special in high school. He reclassified so he could hear a year early, like Ryan Williams did. And I'm assuming that he's, in their plans, and I hope he can come in and learn whatever the nuances needed to learn, because I think at some point in time, if you got a talented ball carrier, you need to get them on the field and get the ball in their hands. So I'm hoping that's what we'll see with Crowell.
All right, before you go, got to ask you, tap into your smart brain. Ole Miss Miami tonight. What do you think happens? Who are you picking to win?
Well, I think we've all talked about Trinidad Chambliss. I know you guys have. Fernando Mendoza deserved the Heisman Trophy. No doubt in my mind about that. But I don't think there's a quarterback. Of course, only 4 of them playing, but that was magic what he did in their playoff game against Georgia. So I think he's phenomenal. I like that defensive front for Miami. I just think that what they were able to do against Ohio State, how disruptive they are. The key for them, I think, is Beck. He doesn't have to be great, but he's got to be good. He can't be bad, Carson Beck. I think it's going to be a really, really good game. I'm leaning toward Miami, though, just to be honest with you.
All right, John.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go the Rebels. I think it's going to be a really good game. I do have some concern about Carson Beck's ability. I think this is going to be a problem for the Rebels. Carson Beck has played in big games before. He's going to be prepared for this. And the Ole Miss secondary has got to show up tonight to give them the opportunity to win.
Yeah.
But I think I'll go Rebels.
All right. Gary, what are you talking about on your show this morning? I got the Tide 100.9 app on my phone. Everybody should put it on there. Tide 100.9. It's nonstop on Alabama and all college sports.
Well, I got our pal, Coach Ellis Johnson, on at 9:30 to break down.
Love him.
College football playoff semifinal. Also, to he'll analyze what went wrong for Alabama against Indiana. Haven't seen many games where Alabama got a beat down like that. And I was going to say D. Orlando Ledbetter, but I moved him to tomorrow because Arthur Blank's got a press conference. He's normally on Thursday. But I think he was surprised that Arthur Blank pulled the plug on Raheem Morris. But we'll talk about tomorrow that, and we'll take phone calls. Also, Jeff Spiegel from ABC 3340 in Birmingham will join me, and we'll get started here in about 4 minutes. So I guess I need to go.
All right,
Jeff,
well, make
Jeff
sure
is
you
damn
make sure
good.
you make sure you call him Tom Cruise. He loves to be called Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's my nickname for him. He does love it because he is Tom Cruise because he's the coolest former coach ever. So anyway,
He's still a coach.
Cool. All right, guys. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank
care,
you, Gary.
Gary.
Sorry, I was
Thanks
late
more than
today.
you know.
Got to get-
Hey, thanks more than you know, man, for sharing your time. Look, I'm Brendan. These coaches, they just get, what they've been through, what they've done. Talking to some friends yesterday that really know college football while I was at the park on the river with the dogs. Just, man, there's so much cool stuff happening. John Hartwell, about John Sumrall, look at what he's doing at Florida. You've known him since high school. There's just something about him that's old school, new school. It's both. He understands it, and his ability to connect with the fans, the high school coaches, and his players. But he's a truth broker more than anything else. That's what I see. You win at Tulane. He's been a coach 4 years, head coach. He's played for the conference championship every year he's been a head coach.
Yeah, I mean, you see some of the commentary about DJ Lagway and him not staying in Gainesville. John doesn't shy away from that. He said, "Hey, great kid, wish him the best." But he made the decision that not going to be in this program. We're moving on, and that's the way John is. He's a pretty matter of fact. What you see, what you get. Much like Pete Golding. I mean, again, I mentioned it earlier. I think that's why the players have bought into Pete Golding. He's real and he cares, and you can tell he cares. It's not lip service what he's doing. And student athletes are perceptive. They know when you really care, and they know when you're bullshitting them to, just to get them to do what you want them to do. And and both of those guys, Pete Golding and John Sumrall, have that ability. I'm not saying, hey, you're better off being a defensive guy, because both those guys are defensive guys. Obviously, Kirby Smart, Dan Lanning are defensive guys, but there is a little bit of something in the sauce that those guys have a realness to them that players buy into and believe.
Yeah.
John, you're very close friends with. I think people should know that you're just not talking off the side of your mouth here. You actually know John, coach, for a while, and I think people should know that. I think that's important. When you see these, or you hear the criticisms like, well, these other coaches advance, and Cignetti's got advance. Talk about, as a former AD, the difference in the talent level that Summerall had versus some of these other guys and these other teams, a la Cignetti and my all these different programs. Very in depth what that actually means, and I believe that John did so much over at Tulane that it's a sort of
Appreciated.
underscored.
Yeah, it really is. And I'll say this as it relates to Tulane, and you've got some other institutions where you have the same thing. Not only is it going to be a bigger challenge, I'm not going to say it can't happen, but it's a bigger challenge to attract the 4 and 5 stars, 3 stars even for that matter, but you've also got academic requirements that you're not going to get. You may get a handful of waivers for kids that don't qualify academically to the same rate or to the same standards that the general student body does. But you've got to be creative, and again, it goes back to you've got to be a great evaluator, not only of talent, but of, hey, what potential? If I can get this kid into my system and play this role, how does that translate to success? Not just in the American Athletic Conference, but when you're playing the Dukes and the Northwesterns and people that, Tulane beat this year. And I give that to Kurt Signetti too. I mean, it's much different what he's recruiting at Indiana than it was at James Madison, but it's the same system that has success. And I think you're going to see John do that, take that transitioning from Tulane to the University of Florida, from the American to the SEC, and still have high levels of success.
Well, you have to, as a coach, wherever you go, you got to love where you are. You got to love the people. You got to reach out to them. And that's what I see him doing. And I'll tell you another one. Go up to Ryan Silverfield. We talked about Lane Kiffin, what he did in the portal. 66% of his team this year, well, he's gone now, but was kids mostly from the portal. 34% were high school kids on that roster. Silverfield last year at Memphis, 71 new players, high school in the portal. He's doing the same thing at Arkansas. Dave Bartu, College Football Matrix, hempforpros.com, said on the Monday show on this very channel, he said, talent-wise, Indiana's about number 33 in the country. Look what they're doing. You know where Arkansas is? 34th. It's about coaching. And I think there's these coaches that have come up from the American Conference, John, they are hungry. I'm not saying they're PhDs because they ain't poor because they've been coaching college football, but they're hungry, desperate, and determined because they've got a chance. There's only 16 of these SEC jobs in the world. That's a hell of an opportunity. John, we've got to wrap it up.
Yeah, but we can go a little bit.
Okay.
We were a little late this morning.
Okay.
I just wanted to, we got to talk gambling because it's a huge part of this sport. So the spread's 3.5 favoring Miami. Hartwell, what you got?
I still stay Rebels. Give me the Rebels.
Okay, the Rebel and the point. You're taking the.
I'm going to take the Rebels straight up, and obviously the points are just gravy.
Okay, so straight up, and you're taking the book. I got it. Okay, well, I'm looking for your dead lock. I'm looking for the Hartwell lock of the game is what I was looking for, but I didn't so much get that to go bet the house.
Yeah. I like I like them to win the game. I really like them getting an extra field goal and half a point.
Okay. All right. Rob, what's your pick here?
I said Miami. I'm sticking with Miami. I want Ole Miss to win, but I just that front seven for Miami is so disruptive, and they have been so good at running the football that physical part of the game, which is everything, is enough. But again, I hope this is the case where I hope
gambling
I'm wrong.
now.
Yeah, I'm taking Miami minus 3.5.
Yeah, you're taking okay.
Yeah,
I agree. I agree with Rob there. I think Miami's going to show up and prove to everybody how good how good their line is and how tough they are up front. Because I think I mean I watched them play this year from the sidelines, and they're a big group. I really do think Miami's gonna surprise some people. Not surprise them, but I think there's a lot of people thinking Ole Miss and all the momentum is going to be more than to overcome that. I just don't think that makes good football sense.
Question for you, Brendan. You were down on the field at the Miami Florida game.
Many years.
Speed wise, how fast is this Miami team? How do they compare to this Ole Miss team for speed, especially on the wideouts and all the offensive skill players?
I think John can attest to this. It's really hard to evaluate talent from the sideline. Like that's why there's a high 50 camera that these guys watch. What you can tell from the sidelines is very different because you see the organization of the program. You hear coaches, you hear call outs, you can't necessarily park out behind the bench. There's rules. At Florida, you walk behind the bench to get to the opposite end zone. So you kind of like get this breath of, just really being on the sort of the viewer from the field, right? So from the observer, I guess. And you see size, you just see, like who's more physical. I think it's just a different way to evaluate. So I'm not trying to bail out in the question. I just don't think it's I could accurately answer it from that perspective.
No,
but watching them on TV, I mean, I agree with probably what everyone else is saying, what John was saying earlier. I think Miami's just balanced. I think that's good coaching. I think that I've liked, Cristobal for a while. I know he gets a lot of crap, but I just think he's a good coach. And I think that's what we're going to see. I think that this is where, you start the separation. I think the Ole Miss thing is going to sort of, is it a trap game, right? Is it too emotional? We're still dealing with younger people here. I don't know. Any given Saturday, right? So,
well, you've got to, what you got to do is play within yourself and not get too caught up and start hyperventilating. And John and Brendan's right. That's why most coordinators are up in the box. You see it so differently, a flyover versus being at ground level. I will say this.
Well, they're right next to the refs usually. So where they're doing replay, you can sometimes, a lot of times they'll be right there in the skybox up there in the media boxes.
Well, and another thing, John, I want to ask you, as an AD, you're always up in the box at a football game, aren't you?
No, well, I am at times.
You're on the field.
I always reserve my fourth quarter to be able to find the opportunity to watch the game. I mean, obviously, as an AD, you've got to make your rounds in the suites in the club area, and glad hand, and you're doing some on the field presentations too. But I always reserve the fourth quarter to kind of go get in my own zone where I don't have to listen to all the armchair prognosticators and what they're doing and the commentary on the game. I'm either locked in by myself, or there may be a couple of staff members who I know they know not to bother me with periphery stuff that's not important in the last 15 minutes of the game.
That's a stressful job these days to be that guy or man or woman in that position, I think, because I see you guys at the sidelines working around at a big blowout game or whatever it may be, and that can get stressful.
Yeah. And John, that's the one thing too. We talk about a team. Oh, we're going to beat the brains off this other team. Listen, when you're standing on the sidelines in the pregame warmups and you see the guys on either side dressed out, that's when you start going, wow, if you're not ready to play, you're going to get beat. And I hope they took some energy gummies. By the way, let me say something about those energy, chill, and lights out gummies from hempforpros.com. They work. They're simple. They're legal in all 50 states. Hempforpros.com. Say it again, hempforpros.com. I'll spell it. And they work. Look, Dave Bartu.
When you've got the NFL as one of your official, like, this is not your average, gummy. You guys got to understand that there's a lot of research and good research that's gone into to really help athletes recover, really have athletes find sleep, and heal faster. When you talk about energy and these kind of things, it's not like you zing, take a cup of coffee, your heart's racing or anything like that. It's not a drug related thing. It's a gummy and it's a natural situation. I've taken them myself. Dave done a lot of research, all organic, all of the farming and everything is done, exactly how you want it to be. And if you're going to do a gummy, you're going to do a CBD, you're going to do something like that. It's hard to find this stuff. It's really difficult because there's a lot of really bad product out there. Check out these guys down here. You want to trust these guys. We trust it. We take it. Hit the QR. You won't be sorry. I think it's Friday, 2025. There's several things that you can hit at the checkout. Get yourself 25% off.
Yeah, and another thing too, guys, y'all all have heard of the former linebacker for the Chicago Bears, Mike Singletary. He was the first guy to use these, and he said, "Hey, I hadn't slept like this since I was 9 years old. These things work." NFL, Harry Carson, a lot of these guys. Look, another thing, I tell you, great stuff here, and I'm going to thank everybody for watching. Share us and like us. We are building a channel. This game tonight, man, it's going to be so much fun. I tell you, It's emotional knowing so many Ole Miss people. This is going to be so much fun. Let me say, LandersFordMemphis.com, folks. Get out there, ask for Brad Bellamy, the GM. Brad also loves talking college football, college sports, and we're talking about next year doing a gaming show with Bartu and some of our team members like a Brad and like, Frank. They'll have a lot of fun with it. Landers Ford open every day of the week except Sundays. Make it simple for all your car, truck, and SUV needs. Landers Ford, Memphis, Poplar, and Houston Levy. Right down the street from Hewlett and Dunn Boot and Clothing Company. Open every day of the week, 10 a.m., 6 p.m., except for Sundays. And Rumble Boxing, how you fight is how you live. Look, most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. Think about every time you're out there what you can do to help other people out. This show's a great platform. John, Brendan, I think I speak for all of us. We can't thank the people enough, like One Stone Angel. He is the first man up every day. I love this guy. Indian Pass Pirate, Kelly Leak, all of you.
We're still gonna work on our goodbyes in 26. That's what you know, Rob.
Hey,
You're the annoying
everybody.
parent that doesn't leave, and you sit in the driveway. Love you, Rob. Say goodbye. Good night,
everybody.
John Boy. Go
Good
watch
night.
football. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Shalom, everybody.
Great.
Thank you. All righty.